And welcome to the Confound Millennial, starring Stirvin Michaels, and featuring special guests Jason Ashcraft and Sozos Michael of Planeswalker. What's up, guys? How's it going?
Hey, good man. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Glad to have you guys on. Sozos disappeared, but we'll get him back shortly, I'm sure.
Yep.
So I'm going to ask you, and I guess it's just you, the hardest question that I ask anybody. Who are
Ready.
you?
I'm sorry. Say that again.
Who are you, and what is Planeswalker?
Oh man, that is deep. Who am I? Yeah. Well, I'm just a guy who likes to play Magic so much that he felt the need to start a band about it. So, a little more backstory to that is I have another band called Helium Prime. That's I'd say my main group. It's the one I'm most active with, and Sozos will tell you a little bit more about it probably, but he was the singer for a short period of time in Helium Prime. But as you already know, Steven, we do not live in the same area. I live in California. I'll let Sozos say where he lives. But I really enjoyed working with him. I love his voice. And, like I said, I got into Magic maybe two and a half years ago and just got really into it. And I knew I wanted to do some sort of new project at some point with Sozos. And, I already kind of do the science sci-fi thing with Helium Prime. So I was like, what could I do for this project? And I was like, I'll just do a Magic the Gathering band. Why not? I approached Sozos with the idea. He was into it. We put out that single that everyone just heard the clip of, the Forever Serpent. I mean, it's been almost a year now since we put that out. And then we kind of slowed down for a little bit because, we just, got busy. And then here we are now with a Kickstarter for our official EP, which actually now we're adding an additional song. So I guess we're considering it a full-length album now. Yeah. So that's more of where the band started, but that is also who I am because that's literally all I do is bands and Magic. So.
Hey, that's not bad. That's not bad. Bands and Magic. We have three main focuses on this podcast: music,
Nice.
Magic, mental health, and you guys got two of them together. So, boom.
Perfect. Yeah, and then Sozos, go ahead.
Jason already mentioned our history. So I was the lead singer for Helium Prime, and that's how I actually met Jason, through an online audition. I got in contact with Helium Prime, and I was their vocalist for I think 1.5 years. And but then the distance got in the way. But we had to stop working together because like Helium Prime is like a band that like thrives on touring among like other things, and I just couldn't do that. But I was it was in excellent terms, and I loved working with Jason. So when he came to me with the idea of making a new project, even though I knew nothing, and I still know like very little about Magic the Gathering, I was very into working with Jason again.
I'm getting him there. Don't worry.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. I didn't expect okay, so I'm guessing, Jason, you write all the lyrics as well, right?
Actually, no. So Sozos just does his research.
Okay.
So I I cannot write beautiful melodies like Sozos can. So he writes the lyrics. I more just guide him on what they should be about, and then I'll sort of direct him like, okay, go look up this storyline. You know, read about this, and this song should be about this. And you know, interestingly enough, well, not interesting, but so far everything you've heard has actually been written by Sozos, because like I've been pretty busy with Helium Prime, and he just started kind of pumping out these songs, and next thing you know, we had an EP's worth of material. So I'm just like I've said before, I'm just glad I'm the Magic guy, or there wouldn't be much for me to have contributed so far.
I'm actually, for Sozo saying that he doesn't know much about Magic, just from what I've heard with the Forever Serpent and Summoning Sickness, I'm very impressed.
Yeah, like I said, he'll just kind of like he'll write it and he'll like ask me, does this work? I'm like, yeah, that would make, if I as a Magic fan, I would understand what you're talking about. So yeah,
it's been a very interesting dynamic, like researching stuff that like I haven't played the game yet, like in any capacity that matters. I've watched some tutorials and I've seen like a basic overview of the rules, but I've never played. And just reading the stories is interesting by itself. But I imagine like after I really get into it, I don't know where this will stop. Like it will keep going forever.
But that was kind of why I thought Sozos would be into it, because even though he's never played the game, I felt like the lore was something that would be up his alley. So, you know, the wide fantasy, all that kind of stuff that comes with the Magic lore. I was like, even if he doesn't play the game, I felt like that's something he could get into. So,
right. I actually, my last episode I just had, I had a guy that runs a Magic shop, and he's been playing since '94. And
oh, wow.
He told me that he's never really gotten into the lore, that all he knows of it is from people in his shop just stopping and talking to him about it for an hour. But he's never read any of the books, any of the Wikipedia pages, nothing. And I'm like, how? It's such a... I mean, I've never read any of the books myself, but like I'll dive into the Wikipedias and like... you know, the stories that they post online when they release a new set, and just immerse myself in this crazy world of worlds.
I love it because it's really cool, you know, because as you know, when you're deck building, you're not building your deck around a lore, a certain story, right? You can play cards from any set, any lore, but I love it when I'm doing that, and then I get a reference. Like I'll see a card, like, oh yeah, that's when this is happening, or you see a quote from a character. To me, it just makes it that much better. Like even if like your deck's not built around it, it's just really cool to know both sides. Like you said, I think it adds a lot to the game. Other than just like, oh, here's a dinosaur card. Like, I say that because I got my dinosaur deck out right now. But like, it's more than just a dinosaur, because like it's the dinosaur in the world of Magic. So it's like very specific, and I don't know. It makes it better for me, you know, knowing the lore behind it.
I understand. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was basically done. But I was gonna say even something as simple as an artifact that when you're playing the game doesn't mean anything, you know, like the most recent one that I was reading about, the Immortal Sun, you know, you play that artifact, it's a dope artifact for sure, so it's worth playing, but like there's so much more to that, the Immortal Sun, than it just being an artifact in the game, you know, and so it's really cool. Sorry, what was it going to say this?
I understand. I guess I do understand the people will play Magic and not get into the lore, because from what I've seen from my limited understanding of the game, it's very robust. Like it has like a few mechanics, and there's a lot of depth in the game. For some people, that's enough. It's like chess. You don't need to know
Yeah,
um,
absolutely.
but I do believe what drew me in more is like the artwork. That was like the most striking thing for me, and then some out there concepts that I haven't read about in any other fantasy that I have read. So that was really interesting.
What kind of concepts would that be?
So what's a slight mind screw that when I read some of the lore was there's a part in the Oath of the Gatewatch story where Tazri, which is like this general in Gideon's service, she's trapped by this like aura or bubble or influence of an Eldrazi Titan, and it kind of slows down time for her, so that she lives out millions of years in that instant where she's trapped in that bubble. And that is that was a very interesting thing to read about, because like that's what happens when you're near a black hole. Like time dilates, and yeah, I mean, I haven't read about this, but that was a very interesting thing to read about.
Wibbly wobbly, timey wimey science stuff.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
But you mentioned, decks that you don't necessarily build a deck around a story, but, some people have tribal decks that are...
Oh, yeah.
And I don't have a tribal deck, but I do have one deck built around one Planeswalker and her story. And I'm very excited for one of your latest announcements that you all made, that you have somebody to voice Liliana.
Of course, see, that's why we did it, man. So many people. Where's Liliana? So we're like, you know what? Let's just do a song with Liliana. Yeah, and no, that's great too. Like I have a lot of tribal decks as well, and I've actually thought about doing what you just said. So that's really cool that you did that. Is actually trying to build a deck around a specific lore. It's just something I haven't done yet. So I assume yours is Liliana.
Is it playable? Yeah. No. But does it have a lot of Liliana Planeswalkers in it and a Chain Veil? Yes.
There you go. No, man, I'm excited. Yeah, and like I told everybody else, so if you've seen the announcements, right, the big hitter song on this will be the Oath of the Gatewatch song, where we are pulling direct inspiration from the story Oath of the Gatewatch. So, because I love Liliana too, just as much as everybody else asking about her. I mean, anyone who's really into the game, it's really hard to not love Liliana, But, and I even thought about it, like, oh, can we bring her in somehow? Because it's Liliana. But it just didn't make sense to the story. Like, why? Like, she's not in it. She's not involved. So bringing her in doesn't make sense. And then, like you said, like, we announced it. We announced the singers, and so many people just, like, doing the Gatewatch without Liliana? It's like, well, yeah, but she's not there yet. So it doesn't make sense. But, our Kickstarter is doing so well, like, better than we thought, that I hit up Sozos, was like, hey man, what do you think if we just add another song and let's have Liliana be in it? Like, why not? So thanks to everybody's amazing support, they're gonna get Liliana.
Yeah. Heck yeah. And you mentioned the story of it. Is this going to be like a concept album that has a storyline over it, or is it going to be random songs?
So it's random. We called the EP Tales of Magic, and basically when Sozos was working on the songs, I just gave him a list of, since it's our first one and we're kind of putting ourselves out there as this is what we're doing, we just have like what I would say basic generic Magic stuff. Like we have a song called "The Spark," which is essentially just a generic song about a planeswalker getting their spark. Sozos just kind of read up on it, and different parts are. He could probably tell you a little better, but I think from what he told me is he just took influence from different planeswalker stories when they first got their spark. Am I saying that right, Sozos? Yeah, and then we have a song called "Tales of Magic," which is just a generic overview of Magic lore in general. We're re-recording the Forever Serpent, which is about Nicol Bolas. First song we did, had to do it about the boy. And then so Summoning Sickness, that's actually just a working title right now. And what we did, so the song itself isn't really related to the term Summoning Sickness. Sozos actually had some filler lyrics right now that are based on a novel. Once again, he could probably tell you about that if you want to hear more on what that novel is, but it's not Magic related. And he came up with the idea of let's have a Kickstarter perk where someone can choose what the song's going to be about. So someone actually chose that perk. So as of right now, we don't know what that song will be about.
Great.
And then we're going to do the Liliana song. And then the final song, which is just like a big long hitter, is the Oath of the Gatewatch. So the EP or the album is just more just an overview, certain topics of Magic itself, not so much a concept.
And dang it, I forgot my question. Horrible.
That's all
horrible
right.
Times. I'm just I don't know, I'm so wrapped up in all of this. Like, I just found out about you guys a couple days ago, and I wrote you immediately as soon as I found out. And
Nice.
like, I love it. I love the whole idea. I love the sound. I usually just listen to pop punk music, but I really love like the sound that you guys have, even though it's not something I'm used to.
Right.
I did remember my question though during that small rant. It wasn't a question but a statement. With Summoning Sickness, I could tell that the lyrics weren't like necessarily directly, about any story or something, but it definitely made me think about a token deck.
Funny enough, me too. It kind of just worked. Like I was like, that could work because an army, right? And the Summoning Sickness, and they gotta wait to attack. But funny enough, when we released it as the Kickstarter demo, we didn't have an actual title for it. We were actually calling it Les Mis because when Sozos first sent it to me, it reminded me of the musical Les Mis, So that's what we were calling it. I was like, all right, we can't call it that when we put it out.
Right.
So I suggested Summoning Sickness more as like, because we released it a week before the Kickstarter. So I was like, oh, this is like us putting our creature out on the battlefield, but it can't attack yet. But in a week, when it comes back, it'll. So it's just a silly, let's call it that. But Sozos, if you want to talk more on the song, where you actually got the inspiration from, I don't remember.
Yeah, so I got the inspiration from. Well, it's not a specific battle from it, but it's Malazan Book of the Fallen, which is like a 10-book series that I have read, and I'm currently rereading. It's that good. Highly recommended to anyone that likes fantasy. And there's a point in the story where it's like it really struck a chord with me, where there's an army that knows that what they're doing is not enough, and they're still doing what they must so that they can protect the people that rely on them. So that was masterful. The books are masterfully written, so it was very touching for me. So I based the lyrics on that, and then Jason came up with the connection of Summoning Sickness, and that worked. But as he said, we're going to be changing the theme of the song based on the person that picked the perk. And it's going to be about something else, but it's going to be, again, Magic related.
I've actually listened to the song so much, though, that I do really like the lyrics. You should save them for Sozos has another band, Harmonize. You should find a way to reuse them and harmonize, because they are really good lyrics.
It is. It's really good.
Harmonize is has a more has a harder sound. I would say it's more like it's dark power / thrash / death at some points. So I don't know if those I think are, even though they're very tragic lyrics, they have an uplifting message. So I don't know if it would fit, but I'm sure we can find a way to utilize them.
Yeah. Or like you said, if we could just, it's a token. It's about tokens, bro. Yeah, it's a token army. There, it fits.
Let's just hope the person the perk is going to request a token song.
Yeah, then you're good.
Yeah. It's like
I'm actually very excited to see what this person chooses. So yeah,
that's a very fun idea. It's a very cool idea that you're having somebody name it or figure out, not name it, but figure out like the content of the song.
Right.
But, speaking of, Sozos mentioned, how it was kind of based off of another book. And speaking of other fantasy worlds, did you hear about yesterday's news in Magic?
I did. Yeah.
Warhammer and Lord of the Rings coming to Magic the Gathering.
Yep. Funny enough, like, I just was talking to a friend, I'm surprised they haven't done Lord of the Rings cards yet, because it makes so much sense. Now, of course, I was talking about skins like they did with Godzilla. To be honest, my opinions on what they're actually doing are kind of wibbly wobbly right now. Part of me doesn't like it. I feel it's like thinning out Magic's identity. But at the same time, I also don't care enough to make a big stink about it, Like, I'll love the game. I'll keep loving the game. And if they want to start incorporating, I just hope it doesn't, like I said, taint the game and Magic loses its identity, because that's one thing, one thing that drew me to it, and I think a lot of people, is its own unique worlds, its own unique lore. And I know they said like it'll have that certain like stamp on it, and it'll almost be kind of like silver cards, but they also, they said it'd be illegal in standard, but they didn't really say anything else, right? Unless
they didn't say anything
that.
about modern or commander.
Yeah, so it's like, that's kind of, it is what it is. And
I can't imagine that it'll be legal in modern. I can see it making its way into Commander because the Walking Dead cards are legal in Commander. But at the same time, I've already made my stink about the Walking Dead on the show every time. And ever since they announced that the Walking Dead cards, I knew that this was going to happen with other sets like this. I didn't think it'd be this big. My biggest complaint is I don't think my wallet can handle the Lord of the Rings set.
Yeah. My wallet can't handle Magic in general, but here we are, man. I was just talking to my buddy yesterday, and dude, we just got Kaldheim, and they're already doing spoilers for the next set. It's like, can you slow down? Like, let me enjoy Kaldheim first. I haven't even been able to figure out which cards I like the most yet, and now you're giving spoilers for the next set. And then what is this called? Universe Beyond, or Universes Beyond, with the Lord of the Rings and Warhammer and stuff. And like I said, it's fine. It's gonna happen. So I don't personally care for it, but I also don't care enough to, like I said, make a big uproar about it, if that makes sense. Like, it is what it is. I'm not really into the idea. I like Magic for their stories. As much as I love Lord of the Rings, I'm not interested in Lord of the Rings Magic, you know? But if someone is, cool. Good for you, man. You know? And, you know, it'd be cool to see a Gandalf card. I'm like, you know, I might collect it. But again, that's about as far as I'll go with it. But again, what drew me to, I mean, obviously the game was fun, but what really got me into the game, you know, the artwork was the start, but then the lore is what kept me, you know, like when I really started to learn about the lore of Magic, I was like, wow, this is so cool. And it just made the game so much more to me. If it was just a card game based on just fantasy stuff, I don't know, it wouldn't have the same appeal to me. So,
right.
So like I said, it's not my thing, but if someone's going to enjoy it, it's still just a game at the end of the day.
And so, going back to the lore a second and piggybacking off of something Sozo said, he had mentioned, and I don't want to be a fanboy and just pitch you ideas, but if he is used to working on darker music, make him write a Tybalt song, boy.
Well, we've said this in another interview, and the one thing I like about this project is we can do stuff like that. Like with the Liliana song that we're going to be working on, I'm feeling a much darker tone than what we've done already. You know, like she just brings that sort of gothic, very dark, evil, even though she's not necessarily evil herself, but I mean, come on, she controls a horde of zombies, so
horde of zombies, 5 demonic packs, worked for Nicol Bolas, a lot of stuff going on.
Exactly. Yeah, she's done some things, you know, and just
effed around with my boy Jace just to break his heart. Like, come on.
Right? It's going to be a love song. So that's actually what we're doing. So the idea is, because obviously, like, I still want Sozos on the song because he's the Planeswalker singer. So I was like, how do we do this Liliana song and make sure Sozos is involved? Well, in the Oath of the Gatewatch song, he plays Jace. So we're pretty much, this song is going to be like a continuation of Oath of the Gatewatch, and it's going to be sort of the interaction Jace and Liliana have that leads to the events of her joining the Gatewatch. So it's sort of like we're extending the story of our Gatewatch song. Which is cool because, again, I was reading about it, and, you know, he gets to Innistrad, and he's being chased by werewolves, and she stops them with a horde of zombies, and it's just, like, right there. Like, that's so much darker than the fantasy stuff we've hit so far. So the music should reflect that, you know? Yeah, so, but that's the cool thing about Magic is it could give us that room to channel that. And even if you listen to, or when you hear Oath of the Gatewatch, I mean, there's some parts in that song where Sozos goes very heavy, very, very dark. Like, he did a great job of portraying each section of that story very well.
I would say that if the Liliana story has like some horror elements, I think that's more classic horror, and Oath of the Gatewatch had some like cosmic horror.
Right.
That's what it felt like to me. With the Eldrazi being like abstract shapes that give you a headache when you look at them and stuff. So both of these do have those elements, but I feel like the Liliana story, we're going to go like heavier than that. Like I trust Jason with he has chops.
Yeah, and so I'm going to be actually working on this one, and you know, if you listen to my other bands, you know, Sozos and I have very different writing style. But the cool thing I was telling Sozos that I really like about this is, with this EP, we've kind of set our sound. Now, I'm not saying we have to always sound like this, but he adds elements I don't normally add in my stuff. So for me, I like it. I take this as a good challenge for me to okay, now how do I implement my sound, but it still comes out sounding like a Planeswalker song and not a Helium Prime song, and like he said, with the Liliana stuff, it's much heavier, much darker. And my writing is a lot more riff heavy than Sozos. I'm not saying Sozos doesn't write some dope riffs, but again, I'm more of the chug guy, very, Trivium heavy, even, Iced Earth heavy. I hope I can still say that band name right now, but no. That was even early Metallica, just a very aggressive hitting riffs is what I like to write. And so, that's my style, I guess you would say. So bringing that into Planeswalker, but still making it feel like Planeswalker, that'll be the challenge. But it's a challenge I'm excited about. One thing that's really cool with Planeswalker is it's kind of helping me grow as a songwriter. Because again, Sozos does stuff that I don't even think about doing because it's just not how I write. But when I hear it, I'm like, ooh, that's tasty, man. So bringing my elements with his, I think will be really cool if we do it right, But I think we will. Teamwork. Yeah.
So you mentioned kind of your musical inspirations for writing. Sozos, what about yours? What bands do you take inspiration from?
So I think my main inspirations are European metal, power metal bands. So Sonata Arctica is one that I've fallen in love with through the last few years. I don't know why I've never gotten into them before, but it's something about most of the power metal I used to listen to was more of a neoclassical power metal. So it had a lot of influences from classical music. So it's usually standard with the orchestra stuff, and then there's a band in front, and then you hear all that sound. That was very appealing to me. So that's part of where I get my inspiration from, and I'm trying to emulate that in the Planeswalker sound. So there is a lot of symphonic elements as well. But also Sonata Arctica, which is my main influence, I would say. It was one of the first bands that showed me that you can do whatever you want, and if you do it with enough confidence, everyone will be fine with it. So weird rhythm changes, key changes, and some out there stuff. I'm not saying that we're doing that with Planeswalker, but it was a way. It's a way to add spice to your songs without making them too weird. And yeah, that was one of the bands that showed me that you can do it, and it's awesome when you do it. So yeah, that's what Sonata Arctica would be my main answer, but also Rhapsody and Rhapsody of Fire, Seventh Wonder, which I'm a big fan of the vocals and the vocal harmonies, and yeah, the Camelot, I would say.
Yeah. Actually, so our song Tales of Magic, when people hear it, that opening, he mentioned Rhapsody and Rhapsody of Fire, that opening right away, I hear Rhapsody in a great way. It makes me think of some classic Rhapsody. And so I'm not sure if you're familiar with all these bands, Steven. You mentioned you listen to a lot of pop punk, but
this is this is pretty much, imagine me talking about punk bands right now. I'm as lost as you would be.
Yeah. Well, if you enjoy our sound and you like the fantasy kind of stuff, I think the bands he mentioned you might be into, especially Rhapsody and Sonata Arctica. Rhapsody is cool. I don't remember when the story ended exactly, but they basically had a long continuation story themselves called the Emerald Sword Saga. So it's this entire fantasy world that they created, and they just tell the story through all the albums. So once again, a big open fantasy world with music like what you're hearing from us. So, maybe we'll bring you to our power metal side, Steven.
And it is a possibility that I have heard some of these bands before, because I do have a friend that's into power metal, but he would have just been like, "Listen to this dope song, man." Wouldn't tell me who it is. I wouldn't have remembered, but it's not to say that I'm necessarily, obviously I like you guys' sound. I'm not against it. I'm open to it. And that's one thing that this podcast has done for me over the past 2 years, is it's opened me up to a whole world of music.
Right. Yeah, that's awesome. And, funny enough, I actually love pop punk, and in Helium Prime, 3 of us are huge pop punk guys. Myself, guitarist Chad, and bass player Jeremy. So we always joke that we're going to start like a pop punk cover band that's just going to open for Helium Prime on tour. And it's just going to be like the 3 of us just like switch instruments and just do pop punk covers. So, yeah. We've actually been talking about, spoilers, because I don't know if we'll ever actually do it, but we've talked about making a metal version of Aliens Exist from Blink-182. And at one point I actually had it listed as a bonus track for an album, but it just never ended up happening. So it's kind of become a running joke between us, like, "Yo, when are we doing Aliens Exist, bro?" So maybe someday we'll just do it but yeah. So yeah. So jumping from power metal to pop punk, man, it's great. They're both very fun stuff. Also like ska. I joked about starting a ska metal band at one point, but
I keep trying to get a ska artist on, like not any specific one. Just I've shouted out to a bunch of ska bands, and none of them are interested, man. If you know any ska bands, send them my way.
I'll try. Yeah. Unfortunately, I don't know any like modern up and coming ska bands. So
it's like the problem with ska bands that I found is they, every time I hit them up, I then go look and realize, oh, they just did their own podcast like a week ago.
Right.
Not that another podcaster has yoinked them, but that they apparently ska bands like podcasting.
All right. Well, who knew? Yeah. There was this local pop punk band in Sacramento here that was really good, man. They reminded me of like Sum 41 vibes, dude. Just like had some pretty borderline metal riffs, but like obviously pop punk. And they were a band that I heard. I actually wrote them like, "Whoa, dude, you guys like are awesome. Like, I hope you guys keep it up." And then they broke up. So, oops. But it was a bummer, dude. Like, they were like, I was genuinely like, I was like really into them, and they like put out a video, and like you could tell like when a band is really putting in that effort, right? They had like a good video, the production quality was good, the songwriting was really good. I don't know what the demand for pop punk these days is. Like, if there's a market for up and coming pop punk bands, I don't know. I'm not that invested in the genre, but they had all the stuff. They had all, yeah. So unfortunately, last I've seen, they are no longer a band. So bummer.
I don't know personally whether or not there is a huge demand for pop punk bands, but I know that there are a lot of new pop punk bands. So hopefully there is a demand for all of them.
Well, I guess I got to do a pop punk magic band,
Let's
Why
do
not?
it. But any last things you want to say about Planeswalker? Any things you want to say to the fans?
Just check out the Kickstarter. We still got about 19 days, 20 days left on it. Some really cool stuff.
Link posted below. Check it out.
Nice. And thank you, Steven, for reaching out to us and having us on here, man. Sorry that, we were jerks and late. I slept in. Sozos, I don't know his excuse.
I have no excuse.
Yeah. But thank you, Steven. And thank you, everybody, for listening.
Thank you guys for coming on.
Cool.
All right.
And this has been The Confound Millennial, starring Stirvin Michaels and featuring Jason Ashcraft and Sozos Michael of Planeswalker.